It
be out
won't
here.
be boring.
I would like to really thank George. I've known George since literally before I can remember. He used to babysit me when I was just a wee lass. Since
They let George babysit?
I know. Well, it turned out all right, so it's all good. Currently, he invited me here to talk to you guys about what I do for a living. So I'm Dr. Martin, which is still kind of crazy. You guys call me Erika. That's cool. I got my PhD in aquatic ecology. So I study fish and streams and all the cool ecosystems, and I'm a research scientist. And I'm currently a university professor, so that's how I roll. Besides teaching, I decided that I love school so much. I'm actually starting a master's in theoretical astrophysics in the fall. They'll let me in, so space and stuff like that. And if that's really not your cup of tea, like I said, I got a song I can play. A lot easier. So I thought, what would you guys want to hear about since I study fish? Turns out there's a lot of fish. About 32,000, give or take, in the world. My specialty is freshwater stream fish. So how many people have heard the word minnows before? Okay, so minnows is actually not just all the little fish. Ah, yes. So carp, the really big ones, those are minnows. But also minnows are in the family Cyprinidae, if you want to be taxonomic about it. And they tend to be small fish with one dorsal fin, and they're really cute. I'm a fan. And they're really pretty too. So that's usually what I study. I study all these small bait fish, as you say, which only hurts my feelings a little bit every time I hear that. So, but I thought, who knows what a bluegill is? Anybody? Or at least heard of one before? Okay, that's what I figured, and probably some fishermen in the audience here, I would think. Hopefully, yeah. Okay, cool. Me too. I'm a fan of fishing. So the bluegill is something that we're all really familiar with, or we think so, right? So.
Are we going to have a bluegill dinner right after your talk?
You know, that sounds great. Now I feel like it's just going to be really disappointing. But you guys can admire my fish tattoo. You can smell it if you like. I would not recommend that, though. That's as close as we got to a fish dinner today. So for bluegill, they're Centrarchidae. What does that mean? So Centrarchidae, basically, they're related to perch, bass, and the panfishes, which are bluegill, sunfish, and things like that. They've got two cool dorsal fins. One of them is really spiky, the other one's really soft. Most of them are really delicious. Okay.
Yeah.
So the bluegill are really cool. Most people fish for them. They're pretty easy to fish for. They're really easy to take care of. Interestingly enough, they're also the lab rat of the fisheries world. And so what that means is we all know, oh, the lab rats, everybody studies lab rats, right? That's what scientists do with my lab coat and my nerd goggles, which I didn't bring today. But for me, the bluegill would be what everybody kind of studies if they're really interested in fisheries and things like that. So we have some fun facts about bluegill that you maybe can appreciate if you're eating them on your plate. I think one of the coolest things, so I'm really into math, theoretical astrophysics, stuff like that. The bluegill, if you think of when things eat things, that just happens, right? Everybody eats. Well, it turns out the bluegill is the first mathematical model for something called apparent size selection. And what that means is that as bluegills forage, they don't just eat whatever they find. It's actually a function of distance and size. Does that matter? So if you have something that's really little, and it's right here, and you have something that's really big, and it's right there, the apparent size is the same. So the bluegill is going to eat the thing that is closest to it until you have a population that is so great they can start to be picky. Because if you're really hungry, you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I would eat anything. I would eat liver and onions. Also delicious. Oh, yeah. But if you have a bunch of food in your fridge, you're not going to eat the worst thing in there. You're going to look around and you're going to find the cheesecake and ice cream. You're going to find the good stuff. That's what bluegills do. They have a lot of food. They get to go around. They get to be really picky. And so they'll swim past some potential prey items and they'll actually pick the biggest, most delicious looking daphnia, aquatic critters that they like. And they'll be really picky. And it turns out that there's a thing called handling time, distance, fullness, and population size, and we can actually quantify those into numbers. and get a value of the likelihood of whether a bluegill will eat that daphnia or not, just based on math, which is pretty cool. Why would anyone do that? Who cares? Well, that has a lot to do with fisheries. So if you are fishing or anything like that and you stock ponds, you want to know if your fish are going to be healthy or not. So you need to know about what they're going to eat, how many of those that you want, and if your population of the prey is going to be large enough to sustain the population of bluegill. Another thing that I really like, bluegill are sneaky, and they actually call them sneaker males. So we all have seen this bluegill in the shallow areas of the lake. They'll actually, the males will create nests. And so they kind of wave away some of the substrate and they create these divots in there. And that's where the females lay eggs and they spawn and they have babies and everybody lives happily ever after. And you see these big, really colorful males, they guard the nest. It turns out most of the time, they're not the father. This is a more show, they're not the father. So the male does do the guarding and keeps the other fish away. You know, other species, other bluegill, like, no, these are my kids, you need to go. Well, it turns out while the big, pretty male is getting someone else to go away from the eggs, these little male bluegill dress up as really beautiful female bluegill, and they come in and they fertilize those eggs with almost a 90% success rate. That's really high. So actually when you do genetic testing on the bluegill all around lakes all over the United States, most of them are actually fertilized by sneaker males, these little guys that kind of weasel their way in and then swim away as fast as they can and leave the sucker, big, awesome guy to do all the work for them. Sounds pretty sweet, right? Actually, it's a successful mating strategy. We call them cuckolds. It's the fancy word. Yeah, I know. Pretty crazy. So, beyond that, there's a really cool thing. So not only do the sneaker males, they are males, dressed up as females, that don't get to do any of the fun mating rituals, they don't get to guard the nest, don't get to do any of that, but what they do have, what actually makes them so successful, and I didn't expect kids to be here, but they have really, really fast sperm. Like really fast. And then the question is...
That's why we have kids here.
Beyond that is I want to ask, which ones are the scientists measuring the speed of the sperm? So who thought to do that? And then how do you do that? How would you know how to study the speed of something that's really, really small? And it turns out that you do that in small experimental units, and you can actually tag sperm in different ways, and you can see how fast they can get from point A to point B. And it turns out that you can also do genetic testing on the sperm to see if are they going to be able to penetrate the egg, are they going to survive. And you can do all this really cool genetics testing to say what the likelihood is from all these different males, male A, B, C, D, E, whatever. If you can collect their sperm and you can run it through some genetic tests, you have a pretty solid idea of exactly how well they're going to fare in the long run. And why is that important? Evolution. Dun, dun, dun. So over time, evolution works, right? So all these sneaker males come in. Not only are their sperm have to be faster, they have to be really, really sneaky, or else they won't be able to get there. So it's pretty cool. So I don't want to talk too long. I could talk about fish.
Are you good at singing your fishy song?
Maybe. So I got the 10-minute mark from my pops over here, Brent. He allowed me to be up here in front of all of you, so hopefully I won't be too embarrassing. But I thought we got 5 minutes left. You guys know I study fish in streams. I do know some about ocean fish, a bunch of weird fish facts, all up in here. I would love to open it up to you guys if you have any just random questions about fish or aquatics. You can go with bluegill, you can go with any of your favorite fishes, just lay it on me, George.
I know nothing about fishing. I'm pretty inept at being able to survive in the wild. However, I have one question. There these guys and gals, I presume, they get on waders and they go into these streams, okay? And then they do this thing with the rod and they do this fly fishing.
Yes.
Now I presume is that because those fishes like to catch flies on top of the water?
Absolutely. So the cool thing about fly fishing, is so you have the fly and it'll land on, and luckily physics works because you have the water tension and the molecules are talking to each other with positive and negative attractions and stuff like that. And so they sit on the water and they'll float there. And the fish, they look up because they like to eat things that fall into the water. So you're targeting those species that have that ability to look up and to eat things that fall in. Typically those are going to be your salmon, your salmon, and your trout. Although you can get bass and bluegill and a few other perch sometimes too. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I saw, yes.
I got a really interesting question.
Okay.
We know that we can't do really DNA testing with fish, but if you wanted to find, you know how whales and animals like in that nature that you can tell kind of what region they came from and that, is it possible to do that with a bluegill, and how would they go about doing that?
Yes, so her question was, we can do genetics testing, can you tell where they came from?
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely, you don't even need genes to do it. You can use genes, but that's the really hard way. So we all have ears, right? So we all have balance, and it's dynamic equilibrium. It tells us which way gravity is. Turns out we have bones in our heads, so your parents were right all along, you're a bonehead. And they tell us how gravity works. Well, fish have that too, and that's called an otolith. It's a bone in the inner ear. And every year it lays down rings. So if you cut a tree down, you see the rings? You know how old a tree is? Same thing with fish. It's pretty cool. Now, it tells you how old it is, but how do you know where it's from? So every year you can imagine the fish is somewhere where it's going to absorb different chemicals and different aquatic signatures because of where it lives. Well, those chemicals get absorbed into the bone, and we have this really awesome machine. It's got a little laser on there, and we start in the middle of the otolith, and we go out and we take a sample at every ring, and it gives us a chemical signature. After we have the chemical signature, we can take a water sample. We run it through the exact same thing, so we'll take several water samples, and we can match it to the most close water sample, and that will tell us exactly where those fish grew up, where they spent their adolescent teenage years, and where they ended up as adults. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes, in the back.
Why does the barometric pressure affect the fish bite so much?
So the barometric pressure it does affect fish bites, absolutely. And so you can imagine a lot of us, if we have arthritis or sensitive joints or something like that, when the pressure changes, you feel it. So do the fish, it turns out. It's a little bit different. Typically speaking, when the barometric pressure drops, which means a storm should be coming in, the fish tend to not bite. In general, there are a few species-specific exceptions. And that tends to be because rain, wind, and other things affect the water clarity. So you know, if it rains, you have the Yellow River out here, looks fine, big rain comes through, and you can't see 1 inch in the water. The fish don't really like that. Most of the fish that you're fishing for are sight predators. And so when you cast something in there, they can't see it. Tough. Catfish, usually less sensitive. Catfish are cool. They have the whiskers, they won't sting you. The whiskers are totally fine. You can pet them if you like. It'd be a little weird, but I won't judge you. But they're actually covered in taste buds. So we have taste buds on our tongue, right? Now imagine if we had a tongue and it covered our whole body, and everything that touched us we could taste. Everyone should be really grossed out right now. That's what the catfish do all the time. They swim around and they taste everything. There's